Hello, everybody. Mr. Swanson here. And would you know it, we went long again on our conversation about Judaism, World Religions Week. We've talked about Islam. Today, we talked about Judaism. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about Christianity. We're evaluating them through the 8 aspects of religion. And this is not going to be a rehash of the whole class. It's really just those final few minutes I got cut short on again. I hope you can tell how passionate I am about these topics, and the reason I'm going long is because I just have a whole lot to share, and because I'm passionate about them because of how foundational they are for our world. Like right now, I'm teaching you world history, and we are going to see these religions matter in our upcoming content: the Crusades, the Reformation, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the American Revolution, World War II, September 11th, and beyond. Like world history turns on religion. Next year, you're going to be in U.S. history. The year after that, government. And religion matters to all of these big topics, which is why we're having a World Religions Week right now. One, you're going to have to forgive the outfit. It is homecoming week, and today is jazzercise theme. So this is why I look the way I look, but I don't apologize for having fun. It's fun to have fun, right? I am going to share my screen. I'm going to share the class that we were just in, the slides that we were just in, and what I'm going to do is wrap up those final few minutes that I got a little rushed on. So welcome to World History. Welcome to the back half of our class about Judaism. Soon as it is loaded, we will get going. Again, I did rush on these, but I just wanted to take an opportunity to really fully elaborate. So we pick up right here at the main storyline of Judaism. For all the conversation we had, let me boil it down to this. There is but one God who wants all people to do what is just and merciful. One God, that means monotheism. We talked about how the Hebrew people were in a covenant with this God, leaders of the Hebrew people being Abraham, Moses, Saul, David, Solomon as kings. Main storyline of Judaism. There you have it. The Jewish storyline is also characterized by this cycle, if you'll follow the circle on your screen, a cycle of oppression and deliverance, all in pursuit of waiting for the Messiah. Now, of course, Christians believe Jesus Christ was the Messiah. They stopped looking at that point. But Jews today, adherents to Judaism still today, are still waiting for a Messiah. And we have seen the Jewish people be in this cycle of oppression and deliverance, and then unfortunately dive back into oppression and deliverance. It's a really vicious cycle of oppression and deliverance. And it leads us to the ultimate genocide. Now, the word on your screen is Shoah. That is a Hebrew word for catastrophe. In English, we would say catastrophe. And what this term gets applied to is what you might be a little bit more familiar as hearing as the Holocaust of World War II, and a lot of times, rightfully attributed to the Nazis and Adolf Hitler. The Holocaust is actually a Greek word which means sacrificed by fire, and in English, we typically call this event the extermination of Jews in Europe during the 1930s and 40s. We call it the Holocaust. But in the Jewish world and in the Hebrew language, they would refer to it as the catastrophe, and it is or Shoah, the catastrophe, and it specifically refers to the killing of nearly 6 million Jews, over 6 million Jews in Europe by Nazi Germany during World War II. What you see on your screen now is Hitler, Adolf Hitler. And after Hitler gained power in 1933, all the way up until the outbreak of war in September of 1939, Nazi Germany was taking incremental steps to persecute Jews in Germany and then in all the countries that they started to invade and annex. Thanks a lot, European appeasement. All you did was contribute to the plight of the Jewish people and the Jewish nation. And again, this cycle of oppression and deliverance, this is definitely an oppression portion of the Jewish story. Hitler and the Nazis, they intimidated Jews. They confiscated their businesses, their homes, their money, their property, and really they encouraged them to immigrate elsewhere. And would they not immigrate elsewhere? Ultimately, it led to a confinement in the camps. During a speech in January of 1939, he actually threatened verbally, out loud, to a crowd. I mean, this is a public speech. He threatened the annihilation of the Jewish race in Europe. So there wasn't much of a mystery as to what Hitler thought of the Jewish people and what his plans were for them. And in fact, in Nazi writing, it's actually referred to as the final solution to the Jewish question. So the final solution is it's a nice way to say that the Nazis wanted to exterminate or annihilate the Jewish people. In Nazi writings, they would not say outrightly, "We want to murder them, we want to kill them, we want to annihilate them, we want to exterminate them." They would use this plain language, almost a bit of a code language. They called it the final solution to the Jewish question. And I think that's a very dehumanizing way to phrase it. They weren't people, they weren't humans, they weren't families, they didn't have a destiny in life. No, it was just the Jewish question. And what is our solution going to be to this question? So this final solution actually began in 1941, and it was a plan to murder all European Jews. After the Nazis rose to power, they organized a lot of events, such as boycotts. Governmentally, they were passing anti-Jewish legislation. There's a really important night in the history of this cycle of oppression called the Night of Broken Glass, which is a night where many Jewish businesses were broken into, shattered. Jews were evicted from their homes and from their businesses. The Aryanization of Europe refers to Hitler trying to create that perfect white race of which Jews were not a part. And it was the idea that they wanted to remove Jews from all of German or all of European society. The final solution consisted of shooting, random acts of terror, purposeful disease and starvation, ultimately the encampment or the concentration encampment of and leading to the death of over 6 million Jews. And let's not forget that across this Holocaust or this Shoah also included the death of nearly 11 million people. Jews were not the only ones targeted, but also the disabled, the elderly, homosexuals, gypsies, people who are different. And nearly 11 million different people were executed by Hitler during this time frame. What I'm showing you now is some pictures, very real pictures of what happened during that time. This picture is called The Last Jew in his particular village, and that is to say that every other Jew has already been murdered. He's the last remaining Jew, and I think what we can note the expression on his face. We can note the expression on the face of the man with a gun. But even more harrowing, perhaps, is to note the expressions on the face of all the bystanders, and you could start to count them. The number of bystanders just in the image, more easily more than a dozen, and we could probably understand that there's more bystanders outside of the frame as well. I wonder what each of those men are thinking, and I bet you could start to analyze what each of these men are thinking, and start to see the evil involved in this final solution to the Jewish question. Picture here are prison photos, right, of children. You are ninth graders in my world history class. These are children probably younger than you, and they are in prison in concentration camps because of their religious heritage or their national identity as Jewish people, as Jewish children, children to Jewish parents. Maybe they haven't even made their own decision on religion yet, but they have Jewish parents, and that got them targeted by Hitler and the Nazis during the final solution to the Jewish question or the Holocaust. So again, I could ask you to analyze the expression on each of their faces, and what do you think is going through their minds as they are being imprisoned, new clothing, hair cut off, uncertain future. A lot to think about in this picture. This is a picture of dead bodies. This is a picture of dead Jews. Definitely at the lower point of the oppression and deliverance cycle. The reason I show you these pictures, the reason I show you these very real pictures is because there are people out there who will try to say the Holocaust is not real. It is made up. It has political aims. It's false. It's a lie. These people are called Holocaust deniers, and they are wrong. The Holocaust did happen. It is very real, and I'm showing you these pictures. I'm showing you these pictures so you'll know evil exists in the world. Evil is embodied by Hitler and his followers, and this is the result of that evil in the world. I don't know how people deny the Holocaust. after seeing images like this, but there are people in the world who are Holocaust deniers. And I would caution you in researching that or going down the rabbit hole or the black hole of the internet. I would caution you to find true sources and fill your brain with true sources as it relates to the Holocaust. These are wedding rings, wedding bands taken off the fingers of incoming Jewish individuals as they were received to the concentration camps. They would have to give up their valuables, give up their jewelry, and every one of these represents a life that was affected or taken by the Holocaust, by the concentration camps. This is a German woman, and the soldiers in the background are Allied forces, either American or British, potentially Russian, Allied forces who have liberated a concentration camp. I don't know exactly which one. And this woman, she would have lived very near the concentration camp. She would have been aware of the sounds, the smells, the noises, maybe even the sights that she was seeing, and she ignored them. She and many like her who lived very near these concentration camps in Germany, she's a German national, they ignored what was clearly happening in their neighborhood, and she is now being confronted with the reality of what was happening right next door. So the Allied forces, the Allied military made German citizens view the destruction that was happening right next door. And what the takeaway here has to be that these citizens ignored what was clearly an evil happening right next to them. They decided to turn a blind eye or just pretend like everything was okay, not speak up. There's a famous quote, a famous saying that the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. And quite unfortunately, very many people did nothing to confront what was very obviously happening near them. You know, bodies have a smell. Death and destruction has a sound, and probably be pretty unrealistic to think that they didn't really know or they didn't have an idea of what was happening right next door. But now she knows for sure. Now she's looking at what happened, and she can't deny it anymore. This is the face of evil. Certainly we could point to Hitler as well. It's easy to point to Hitler. He's a very infamous figure in world history. This is Heinrich Himmler, and he is the architect of the Holocaust, of the final solution to the Jewish question. He's the one that created the concentration camp idea. He's the one who empowered many prison guards and Nazi soldiers and SS soldiers to actually murder these Jews. So he is the face of evil. He is the man who came up with the idea of separating workers versus those who would be immediately exterminated. This is the face of evil. I want you to say their names. If you're still listening, if you're watching alongside me, check this out. An alarming 52% of people in your generation cannot name even one concentration camp or ghetto. These names that were very well known to previous generations who lived through the truth of the Holocaust has been forgotten by your generation. So say these names alongside me. Say these names with me. Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Buchenwald, Dachau, and many more. These are just four of many more, but I want us to know these names. I want you to recognize these names, and maybe you do. Maybe you've read Night by Elie Wiesel. Maybe you've read The Diary of Anne Frank in your previous ELA classes. I hope you have. I hope you do recognize these names. I just want to make sure you didn't walk out of this world history class without knowing these names. Even more alarming is that nearly a quarter of people in your generation say they're not sure if this Holocaust thing was for real. That's the Holocaust deniers I'm talking about. They haven't heard of it or they're not sure if it's real. I want you to know about it. You're going to walk out of my classroom knowing about the Holocaust, and I want you to, if you think this didn't happen or you think there's a shred of evidence that might point to it being not real, I want you to really analyze what you're reading and thinking about. And I hope you'll decide, I hope you'll come to the conclusion that, in fact, this is a very scar on human history, a very negative piece of human history. All right, I had you walk into the classroom today and I sorted you to the left or the right. You may remember I asked you to come on in, spread your arms out. Turn around. Okay, do some of you did an air squat. Some of you did a jumping jack. One or two, you actually did push-ups. Some of you, I made you open your mouth. I looked at your teeth. I looked at your molars. Some of you, I analyzed the strength of your hair, how long it was, how thick it was, how full it was. Did you feel analyzed? Did you feel scrutinized? That's because this, and then I sent you to the left or to the right of the room. I changed your seat. For most of you, that was a change in your seat. Now, some of you really scrapped. Some of you really demanded to stay in your seat. And a couple of you even demonstrated additional physical feats. Like, look, I am strong. One of you I had hold your bag in front of you for a long period of time. I was really impressed that you were that insistent on staying in your seat. You proved to me that you were strong enough to keep your seat. Now, I did this because upon arrival at these various concentration camps, Jewish individuals would be analyzed and sent to the left or to the right. They'd be analyzed by their strength, how healthy they looked, their teeth, their hair. Maybe some of them were insistent on demonstrating their physical strength, just like you did. I am strong enough, look at me. The reason they did that is because people who were sent to the left were deemed suitable for work. They lived. If you were sent to the left, you were going to go to you were going to go to the labor camp. You were going to be kept alive. You were going to labor on behalf of Nazi Germany. You're going to support the war effort through your work, but you stayed alive. You're stripped of all your clothes and your valuables. You had your hair shaved. You were showered. You were tattooed with a number, a registration number. You became a prisoner in a striped uniform, a uniform hat and shoes, and you were forced to labor, but you were alive. That's people who were sent to the left. If you were sent to the right, you faced immediate execution, extermination. People who were sent to the right were deemed unfit for work. They were marked for death. Generally, this was all children under the age of 16, pregnant women, handicapped, the elderly, the mentally ill, the mentally handicapped, sick. Prisoners who were marked for death, they were marked for death by the gas chamber. On average, is about 20% of prisoners were sent straight. 20% of prisoners were marked for labor, and that means 80% of the prisoners were sent straight to the gas chamber. This is the interior of a gas chamber. This is a historical photo that makes this an artifact. This is the inside of a gas chamber. People were herded into here like cattle, like animals, and poison gas was then pumped into the chamber, and they breathed it until they died. And then the bodies were cleared out and incinerated. This harrowing image right here, these are actually claw marks, scratch marks on the inside of a particular gas chamber at Auschwitz. And you can only imagine, I can't even begin to imagine people trying to stay alive, like scrapping and clawing for breath, for oxygen, digging their fingernails into the side of the concrete walls, because what else are you to try to do but to stay alive, and still succumbing to death. After you died in the gas chamber, your body was removed and you're incinerated in these large crematoriums. And this is really where German civilians, German citizens in neighboring communities, they could not have possibly ignored what was coming from these camps, because smoke would rise into the air every time these bodies were cremated. And burning bodies, burning flesh has a very distinct stench to it. And then it's said that even upon the smoke billowing and spreading out, whichever direction the wind was blowing, ash would fall. And actually, think about it, the ash was human remains, flesh, bone, skin, hair, ash falling from the sky. And even if I was in town and the ashes rained down on me and I brushed it off of me, that was a human body I'm brushing off of me. How could they ignore this evil that was happening right next door? This is a man who survived the concentration camps. What he's doing is showing you his tattoo many, many years apart. I should say this first picture is a man showing you his tattoo. This is a young child showing you his tattoo. And then this is the same man showing you his tattoo, obviously decades apart. This is a man showing you his prison intake photo and tattoo. And of course, he has survived into older age. This is another way Jews were marked. I want you to think real carefully about, do we mark people in society? People we like or people we don't like, do we mark them? Jews were marked with this six-pointed Star of David, which you now know is on the the Israel national flag. It's almost as if they took a symbol that was used for negative and made it into a positive, made it into a point of pride. We're going to put this onto our flag. Well, this yellow star was used to mark Jews prior to the concentration camps, and then also in the concentration camps as well. And then I want to point out that Jews were not the only people in the concentration camps, and yellow was not the only color used. Many people were color coded in different ways and by different shapes, based in and put onto their uniform, a different color or a different shape to mark them. The uniforms issued to prisoners in the labor camps had both a number and a color code. Political prisoners, such as communists and socialists, wore red triangles. Common criminals wore green. Gypsies or the Roma, other Germans that were considered just undesirable, they wore black triangles. Jehovah's Witnesses, another religion, wore purple, and homosexuals wore pink. So this labeling was not just for the Jews; it was for many undesirable different types of people. This comes from the United States Holocaust Memorial and Museum, and it asks us to think about what you saw. The next time you see injustice, the next time you witness hatred, the next time you hear about genocide, think about what you saw. Are you a witness to history? Can you say something to change that history? Remember, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Should you do something about what you are seeing? It's a question for you to chew on, a question for you to think about. What if someone or many someones stood up to what they were observing in Europe? What if German citizens right next door to these concentration camps refused to ignore what they were seeing and spoke up? What if? I'm glad this Time magazine exists. I'm glad Hitler got the red X. Earlier this week, we talked about how Osama bin Laden also got the red X by Time magazine. There are guilty people in the world. There are evil people in the world. Unredeemable, irredeemable, unrepentant. Hitler and Osama bin Laden are two of them, and they were both killed in war as targets, military targets, and both of them, Hitler on your screen, Osama bin Laden here in my hands, both of them got the red X by Time magazine. And that's kind of a wrap to talking about the Holocaust, right? We talked about the history of Judaism all the way back to Abraham and Moses, but remember that plight, that Jewish storyline that is oppression and deliverance, oppression and deliverance. Some find the Messiah in Jesus Christ. Others are still waiting for the Messiah even to this day. Leads to the Holocaust in pretty recent history. No, I wasn't alive for it, and you are 14 and 15 years old. You weren't alive for it, but pretty recent on the grand scheme of the timeline. Less than 100 years ago, that's pretty near to us today, a time when over 6 million Jews were murdered because they were different. Final slides here. We talked about Hanukkah in class, and I just wanted to elaborate on Hanukkah a little bit. I'll just leave the screen, the slides on the screen. I know I'm getting talkative again. From Hanukkah comes the idea of the dreidel, and dreidel is a fun little game. Maybe we'll play it someday. Who knows? I talk too much and we never get to the fun stuff. That's not true. We always get to the fun stuff. But dreidel is a game we might play someday in the future. It's a spinning top. I actually have one. I actually have a dreidel right here, and you're probably not going to be able to see it in front of me. And depending on what it lands on, depends on. It's a little betting game, right? You lose your coins, you gain your coins, you get double coins, whatever. Dreidel is a game Jewish children used to play in the midst of another cycle of oppression. And then finally, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the most holy of Jewish holidays, and actually, it's called the Day of Atonement. It's an annual Day of Atonement where you are supposed to basically ask for forgiveness for your sins from the whole year. If I said that incorrectly and anyone wants to correct me or make me more accurate, I'd be happy to hear that. Yom Kippur this year is on September 15th. So on Thursday, we're coming up on this most holy of Jewish holidays. I will wish you a happy Yom Kippur on Thursday. And if you recognize that, that'll let me know that you watched this far into the video. Obviously, this is all leading to the TV news interview. You're going to start on Wednesday. You're going to video on Thursday. So I hope you're taking good notes, because that is what is going to result in a very awesome group project. I'm really excited to see what you come up with. Y'all, I super appreciate you giving me good effort. Thanks for taking notes. Thanks for listening to my talkative nature. I'm passionate about this material. I've got a lot of head knowledge. I'm just trying to share with you guys. You ask great questions. You have great observations. Some of you ask me more questions after class, and I'm always happy to entertain those. For Jazzercise Day, Judaism as a topic, Mr. Swanson, out. Love you. Mean it. See you tomorrow.